main challenges are how to integrate yoga into conventional biomedicine. And before I get into the next point, I don't know if this chart will be visible to folks, but here, mind-body practices according to the NCAM folks, we see, I'll just kind of read out some of the things. Mindful eating, mindfulness and spiritual practices, meditation, breathing and relaxation techniques, movement education, yoga, right? So yoga here does not encompass what Maharishi Patanjali's definition and sequence of yoga is. You see how mindfulness is taken out, spirituality practices are taken out, mindful eating is taken out as something different from what yoga is. So the way yoga is portrayed here is basically asana based, physical based. So I want to say that there's no agreed upon definition of yoga, especially in the West, because often breathing and meditation and mindfulness, which we know is dharana, dhyana, onwards, is kind of taken out as something different or something outside of yoga. Mindfulness, again, is another interesting phenomena because it's been associated with Buddhist practices and not necessarily Hindu practices. So we see that the Buddhist practices, which are secular, like mindfulness, are getting much more traction and are being viewed in a better light than yoga, which of course contains dharana, dhyana, etc. So I want to put that out there. That is the politics of it, one of the aspects of the politics of it. So who is to provide guidance to behavioral researchers? So for example, a set of researchers at a particular university decide to see how college students in a semester, if stress is being reduced, if their grades are improving because of a yoga intervention. Who is to tell these folks what yoga is, what yoga teacher should come and teach, right? Or any of the other standardization points that should be brought up when designing these studies. So that is one thing that is missing. And also, of course, we know not every yoga teacher is the same. Should there be a standardized credentialing worldwide? And of course, what role does India have to play? Like, should we outsource this to the UN? Personally, I don't think so. I mean, that India is the place, right? The Indian subcontinent gave birth to yoga. So I think there's some onus and some leadership aspect that India should take in kind of taking charge of maintaining the narrative. Other cultural challenges, as I mentioned before, is yoga Hindu? Is yoga Hindutva? There have been tons of writing in all types of media where this question is grappled with. Is yoga Indian? That is something we see. Is it, right? And we'll get to that on the next slide. Is yoga religious? And then recently we've seen like yoga is Brahminical patriarchy because women are not allowed, or women were not allowed to practice it, which anyway, Bhakti yoga is something that was very accessible for women, but that's that. Can non-Hindus practice yoga? And who should be responsible for standardizing yoga credentials and regulating teacher training? So these are the questions, the politics-laden questions as we go forward. The marketplace of yoga. This is one of the last big points I want to make. Classical yoga from thousands of years ago does not look the same as what is practiced in the mainstream today. Why? Because yoga has made its journey from India to the West, right? It was taken by gurus to California. California, it kind of underwent some changes, and that California yoga now is out back to the globe, including what we see in India these days. So yoga has gone around the world, and it is no longer the same as what it used to be thousands of years ago. Does it still work? Yes, but it has changed. So this phenomena has allowed cultural appropriation, and elements have often been borrowed and modified according to demands and needs of the market. And some of the examples include beer yoga, wine yoga, chocolate yoga, American yoga, cat yoga, goat yoga, naked yoga, Christian yoga, right? Overemphasis on the physical aspects is another thing, right? Asanas. And also this kind of becomes completely devoid out of spirituality. However, this is considered to be pragmatic by many. Why? Because this is what the market demands. Legal battles involving patents on poses. Some of the things, terrible things to come out of yoga are people trying to patent poses or sequences. One of our own, Bikram Chaudhary, was involved in something like this, right? So we see a lot of co-opting of traditional systems and then kind of it being sold as something new or something entirely different. I already mentioned Christian yoga. Christian yoga, I've been a witness to some of the sessions. It's like you read a verse from the Bible and then you do a yoga pose. And then you kind of keep repeating that. Very interesting. Practitioners have spent about 16 billion on yoga goods and yoga classes in terms of fees. Mindfulness apps are a booming industry. For example, Headspace, estimated at 250 million, right? So yoga is an industry. It is unstoppable. These are some of the challenges when we try to set the narrative about what classical yoga is. Potential. The potential is endless. And I think the time and the window of opportunity given COVID is now. Holistic medical and spiritual tourism is on the rise. Thailand, India, Vietnam, Thailand. India can take a couple of, borrow a couple of pages from the Thailand book and how to run some of these things. Of course, India is doing a great job in terms of medical tourism. There's industries set up where people, book hotels close by to wherever their hospital is and whatnot. I mean, I don't want to get into this, but India is doing its thing, but India can, of course, do more. And so the potential is here. The time to act is now. So big burning questions. What constitutes yoga in contemporary times? Who sets the standards? And what can you do, right? What can the individual at the micro level do to maintain the correct narrative? And this is what I will end with.